Hey, Ian here. Welcome to Fantastic Dimensions. This is a video response to Sam at Chalice and Chains. Sam has tagged me in this questions for DMs and GMs video that's going around on YouTube. So I'll get right to it, Sam. Let's see. Question number 1, and I believe there are 15 questions, is what do you call player agency? Player agency itself is a term that I hadn't heard until maybe the last, 8, 9 months or something, probably since I really started to hang out with the online RPG community. But it's something that's always existed in games. It's just something I've never put a term on before. So to me, player agency is when the players and their characters that they play have the ability to affect real change in the game world. The environment that they're gaming in, whether it's a world, a galaxy, a city, a single room, whatever it is, giving the players the ability to actually make real change in the game is what I would call player agency. If they like a particular NPC or they like something that they latch onto and they want to do something to help that person out or to hurt that person, or whatever it is, they latch on to something. And I don't just mean physically, but you'll see in the way they interact with it in the game. Even if you can't come back to it right away, take a note and make that come back in the game. Your players will definitely, I think they'll appreciate it. They'll interact with it, especially if it's something that they've done. Maybe they helped somebody out. Then have him come back later on, and he's doing much better for himself, and he's successful, and he gives the group a big thanks, whatever. If it's somebody, maybe it's a beggar on the side of the road that they kicked and they shunned him and refused to give him any money. Maybe he comes back later and harasses them or assaults them or something. You never know. But even minor actions that the players do in your world should have some ramifications and consequences as well. So to me, that's player agency. I don't know if that's the dictionary definition, but that's just the way I see it. Let the players make, let their actions really change things in your game. You can do that in your homebrew games. You can do that in a one-shot. You can do that in a module as well, if, as long as you're adaptable enough, I think. Question 2, what does railroading mean to you? If you do apply it, and if you do not, say why. To me, again, railroading, it's a term that I never really used until about a year ago, but it also, again, it's not a new concept, just a term for me. Railroading is when the game master is deliberately kind of pushing the group in a single direction to come to a single end, basically, something that, a scene that he wants to happen or whatever it is, an event. Do I apply it? I suppose I do sometimes. It all depends. I wouldn't say that I do it very often. I don't think it's a very good thing to do very often, if at all. I also don't think that it's the big bugbear that a lot of people make it out to be. Some people say, that's railroading, that's railroading. Look, man, every once in a while, you have to kind of give the party a nudge. It just happens. I don't think it's, a cardinal sin to do a little railroading once in a while. If you're railroading constantly and you're telling players, no, you can't do that, you've got to do this, yeah, that's pretty shitty. But yeah, so why do I use it? I just use it sometimes because there's maybe something that I really, it's a game. We're all playing the game, even the dungeon master. And sometimes there's something maybe that I really want to have happen, just a big bang kind of thing, for the party to go, oh, okay, and then they have to react to that. I don't railroad the entire game, but just every once in a while I might give a nudge, or there's ways of doing it subtly as well. You don't have to just tell people, nope, sorry, you can only go straight. No, you can only turn left. But, there's ways of, I don't even know all the terms that they use, but there's ways of kind of hiding it and bringing it about without making the players feel like you're just taking away all of their agency, But definitely wouldn't use it very much anyway. Question number 3, how does it feel for you when you have a bad session? that's a tough one. As a GM and DM, which is what these questions range at, honestly, I can't remember having a bad session. Because I believe in making the most of every situation. So even if I've had games where the players weren't of the highest caliber, or maybe we didn't see eye to eye, or maybe they just wanted to go murder hobo and just completely take my campaign, well, probably wouldn't be a campaign, but whatever it is, off the rails. Generally, I would just go with it, let it happen organically, a lot, and just react to it as, I think nature befits. But I can't honestly remember having a bad session. Been gaming for 34 years. I did take almost 10 years off, but no, can't remember really having a bad session. I know that I've played in games that weren't the best, but still, again, I wouldn't call them terrible sessions because we made the most of it and we enjoyed what we could out of it anyway. So, yeah. So I suppose if I had a really bad session, I'd probably feel really crappy about it, especially as a GM. I would feel like I had failed. I'd feel like I really got to come charging back now. The next session I run is going to have to be doubly awesome because I got to bounce back from that. And if I couldn't bounce back from a bad session, then I'd probably just hang up my GM's hat and go play video games. Let's see. Question 4. Pardon me. How do you handle bad players? What are some ways you would describe the behavior of a bad player in your view? It's circumstantial, situational. If a player is affecting the game in a bad way, affecting the other players in a bad way, my first go-to generally would be to talk to the player in private. To say, listen, man, this thing that you're doing isn't working really for the group. That's making this person feel bad. It's making this person feel bad. Whatever it is. After that, they continue the behavior. I'd probably call them out in front of everyone because more than likely, by the time that I realize that their behavior is affecting the game in a bad way, probably everyone else has realized as well. So the second time, then I would probably call them out in front of everyone. Say, listen, man, hey, look, I told you, we need to change this. It's not working. And then if it happened again, I just think if a player is persistently disrupting your game, just stop inviting them to the game. That's it. Sorry. It's not working out. There's lots of games out there. They can find another table, find another game. I run multiple games. I might find another game that suits them. But if this game they're not working in, after a couple of times trying to work it out, it's still not working out, then you just got to let that player go. Some people just don't get on. Some people can't work together. It just happens. That's life. There's every pot has a lid, somebody once told me. So even if they don't fit into my game, they'll probably fit into somebody else's game somewhere. Behavior of a bad player, in my view, is somebody who's disruptive, especially constantly or persistently disruptive. They take the game off track for stupid shit, really. Extremely immature behavior. Now, not saying, we're all entitled to a bit of immaturity. I mean, we're a bunch of grown men and women, pretending that we're somebody else. We're playing cowboys and Indians with dice, basically. So, but if somebody is acting really immature or inappropriate, especially, that's really bad. If it's inappropriate behavior, I'd nip it in the bud right away. If they're sexually harassing somebody or if they're making, really bigoted or just terrible statements or something, I would just call them out right away. I try to do so privately, but it wouldn't be a 3 strikes you're out kind of situation. I'd say, look, that's not on. It's got to stop. Depending on how severe it was, I might just say, nope, sorry, you're out right away. I definitely wouldn't give them 3 chances anyway. If they, antisocial behavior, we'll call it. If it persists a second time, that's it. That's done. Sorry. Find another table. Let's see. Question 5. What's a good player in your opinion? And what are some of the things that good players do? Well, a good player is somebody who really enjoys the game. There's lots of different ways to enjoy the game. And as long as you enjoy the game and do so in a way that doesn't disrupt the game for everyone else or anyone else, I think you're a good player. Some good players are excellent role players. Some good players might not be that comfortable jumping into first-person character perspective, but they might really good at descriptions. Some of them might just have a really good knack for dialogue or voices and accents. Some of them think really tactically and just always come up with really good ideas and things that pull the party's, bacon out of the fire. So there's lots of different things that could make you a good player. But ultimately, if you enjoy the game, if you're passionate about the game, and especially if you do so in a way that inspires the other people in the game too to up their game, which I think that's what a real good player does. Is a real good player inspires the rest of the people at the table to be good players as well. Yeah, that's great stuff. Did I answer that question? Yeah, I think I did. So, how do you handle splitting up a group if you do? And if not, can you say why? Yeah, I have no problem with splitting up a group. I presume they mean within a game. Splitting the party is really the term I think that's used more commonly in D&D and stuff. And there's that old D&D slogan, don't split the party. Now, fuck that. Split the party. It's fun. And I'll tell you why, because it creates tension. I play a lot of horror games. And I'm not just talking about Call of Cthulhu and stuff, but sometimes I put horror into my D&D games and things of that sort. I'm running some Lamentations of the Flame Princess right now. That's an old school kind of D&D based game. And there's a lot of horror that I work out in that. That kind of stuff works a lot better when you split the party. If you can get a person all by themselves, you can make things a lot more tense, a lot more scary for them. Or even if you can take a group of 4 and split them into 2 groups. You can really mess with people a lot more when there's only a couple of them than you can when there's a whole group of them together, There's safety in numbers. So take away the numbers and they lose the safety, How do I handle it? I just try to make sure to bounce around a lot. I do this quite a bit. In my campaign that I'm running right now, the Defiance Chronicles, there's 7 players at any given time. And sometimes I've had them split up into 3 groups, 3 different locations. You just got to try to give everybody FaceTime. Think of it like you're watching a TV show. It doesn't focus on the away party for the entire episode. Star Trek I'm going to, right? You see some stuff that's going on with the away party down on the planet. Then you see what's happening with the captain and crew on the bridge. It bounces back and forth. Then you might see what another, maybe a family member or friend of the person in the away party who's in danger. They're sitting in the lounge having a conversation with the bartender. Keep it moving. Don't leave anybody, off in the gray area for too long, not knowing what's going on. You want to bounce around a lot when you split the party. Try to make cuts at dramatic moments if you can. You hear something in the distance, sounds like a growl, and all of a sudden rocks start to tumble from the cliff above you. You look up, and then you cut over to the next group. Things like that. Make it dramatic, make it tense. Have fun with it. Use it to your advantage. Let's see, question 7. What do you prefer more? Interaction and role play, combat, puzzles and traps, or a mix? Well, I think I prefer interaction and role play. It's just the most fun. These are role-playing games. I know, it has role-playing and game in the title, but, role-playing is the headline, right? It's the first word. I love interaction and role-play. I love playing NPCs, that interact with the characters when they're moving through a town or whatever. I have a good fun with that. And I think that gives you a lot of player agency opportunities because the relationships that the players make with the other people of the world that inhabit the world, that's where they can make some change and make things happen and things that come back to revisit them later down the road. So yeah, interaction role play is my favorite. Combat's fun too. Don't get me wrong. I just don't like to overdo the combat. I don't want to play a combat simulator. I don't want to be all action, all fighting all the time. Puzzles and traps are my least favorite of the 3. I like a good puzzle. I like a good trap, but the problem is some groups it doesn't work. They charge right into the trap every time. And if you make too many traps, you could have a dead group pretty quick. And also sometimes people get stuck on puzzles. This happened to me. I remember the Resident Evil games. I was talking about Resident Evil earlier. There was some puzzle that's just like, I cannot figure this fucking thing out. And, what do? Do you go and look it up on GameFAQs or something, to find some information and cheat? Or do you just get stuck there and let the game die? That has a very interesting parallel to an RPG. So if your group gets stuck on a puzzle or trap, try to have a way out for them, or be willing to throw them a bone, I suppose, from time to time, or just be willing to let the game die, because it could happen. Let's see. Question 8. Do you tinker with the rule set you use, or do you use it as written? And would you please explain why? I tinker with every rule set that I use. And the reason why, just because I don't remember all the rules all the time. Sometimes I have to make a ruling on the fly. Sometimes I find something that I think is better. Perfect example of that is because of the group that I grew up in Fate with recently. They have a very different initiative system. It's not at all the way that initiative works in Fate, but I find it to be really fun, and it makes the game, it gives the party kind of a strategy with how they plan their initiative, basically. So yeah, I tinker every rule set, because there's some things you like, some things you don't like. There's no such thing as a perfect system. So I think you should always have some house rules or whatever, things that work for your group. Not just for you as a GM, but for your players as well. Keep that in mind when you make those rules. Do you mind running NPCs with a group of player characters? I'm assuming that this question is referring to the DMPC or GMPC, where the game master runs a character that's a part of the party. This would have been used a lot probably back when you had small groups. There was only 2 players. You need a third party member. Somebody's got to play the cleric. Nobody wants to play the cleric. Okay, I'll GM the cleric. I do mind doing that, honestly. I've done it out of necessity. I haven't had that necessity now in a long time, though, because there's never any shortage of people wanting to play in games in these online communities that I find. So yeah, the reason I mind, because it's just distracting. You forget somebody's there. Oh yeah, the cleric hasn't said anything in like 2 hours, and he just pops up whenever somebody needs a healing spell, and other than that, he's just hiding behind a tree the whole time, or what? It's lame. It's distracting as a GM. You don't need to be focusing on that party member. You should be focusing on everything else in the world. That's my take on it. Thoughts on campaigns? Thoughts on campaigns and one-shots. Do you prefer one more than the other, or are you fine with either? I'm fine with both, actually. I find a lot of enjoyment in both. Campaigns are great for the the slow burn and the really grand kind of payoff. You know what I mean? When you play in a campaign for a long time, you get to see things develop more. I find that to be really, really rewarding. But at the same time, I'm a busy man. I work full time. I got a family. I don't get to game as often as I'd like to, and I have a million ideas going through my head all the time. One-shots allow me to exercise different demons, whatever you want to call them. You know what I mean? Like, I just have an itch to try this out. I'll run a one-shot. I'm playing fantasy all the time. I really need a sci-fi fix. Run a science fiction one-shot. Why not? I think one-shots are very therapeutic. Campaigns are very rewarding. That's my opinion, anyway. How much fantasy versus realism do you apply in most of your games? This is question 11. Well, it's kind of funny because it's a weird question to me, because a role-playing game, by definition, is a fantasy. Not talking high fantasy like elves and dwarves running around, unicorns and magic users and stuff, but fantasy in the fact that it's not our reality. It's a bit of escapism. Even when we read a good book or watch a movie, that's a bit of fantasy. We're imagining ourselves in that situation or in that world or whatever it is. So I like to have a healthy mix of the two. I've never been a fan of running big Monty Hall over-the-top fantasy games. I always like to have a bit of grit. I always like to have things really kind of have weight and bit of realism, in my fantasy even. But yeah, I think you need to have a healthy mix. But you can't let go of the fantasy completely, because nobody wants to play Catering Manager, the RPG. That would bore the fuck out of me. I do that 50 hours a week anyway. When I play an RPG, I want to fucking have spaceships or, you know, flaming swords or, dragons flying through the air, whatever it is, or horrible monsters lurking in the darkness. For real life is real life, So yeah, you got to mix your fantasy and your realism. In your games, by the way, not in your real life. In your real life, be realistic. Let's see. Question 12. Do you prefer running modules, hacking modules, or running your own story? Again, I'm going to take the really lame, on the fence kind of exit on this one. I love running my own stories. I used to do a lot more. Time is a bit of a constraint now. I actually, believe it or not, never ran a module properly until, God, when? I think when I ran the starter set for my, 8 months ago, something maybe, I'd never run a module before. Now, I'm not sure what they mean by hacking modules. That's probably what I do actually more so, because I like to read the module, get the basic idea, the basic skeletal structure of it. But that stuff's never going to go by the script. It shouldn't anyway. That'd be pretty lame. You have to be organic with it, You have to let it change based on what happens in the game. You have to allow that player agency to affect that module that you're running. It happened to me just recently. Ran the tutorial module out of the Lamentations of the Flame Princess referee book, Grindhouse edition. And yeah, the decisions and the actions that my players took totally threw the story kind of off the rails that would be in the written module. So I had to improvise, and it was a lot of fun. It was very rewarding. I think the players were quite surprised. I was quite surprised. Yeah, it was good fun. So yeah, I mean, I run my campaign where I create my own story. We've had 12 episodes in the last 7 months because we started in November. 6 months, 7 months, yeah. But at the same time, modules can be fun too. But you have to be lenient with it. Don't ever run it just verbatim by the book, because that's just boring. You might as well just read a book then. Question 13. What gaming system has gotten you the best results? And tell us about it. Man, the best results, I don't know what you mean. I ran a 2nd edition AD&D campaign for something like 4 years. We went through generations of characters, actually, to where when the campaign wrapped up, the couple of players who still remained, because I'd moved to a completely different state, the couple of players I was still playing with anyway were playing the children of their original characters. So that was a great result. That 2nd edition AD&D, that was my jam for a long time. I didn't like 3rd, 3.5, never played 4th. 5th edition's got me back in the game. But having said that, what system has gotten you the best results? I'm not sure that it's D&D at all. I love D&D. My roots are in D&D. But for me, and I don't know what you mean by results, but the D20 Call of Cthulhu game that I ran, I've run a couple of investigations in that ongoing kind of episodic campaign, I guess. And the second investigation was really fantastic. We had to do 3 sessions to get through the whole investigation. It was involving a horrible snowstorm, Native Americans, a werewolf. It was a fantastic game. I had a few players come and go that played in different sessions. I had 2 players who played through all the sessions, and they were kind of the core of the campaign, if you will. I mean, they were investigators who come from the last investigation and everything. But the emotions in that game were great. The character emotions, the player emotions, had some great horror moments. Yeah, I think it had it all for me. I mean, and I was lucky. I had some really good players too. But they really got into their characters. They did some fantastic stuff. So yeah, that was D20 Call of Cthulhu. That was a fantastic result. I think Call of Cthulhu, though, is just it suits me, really. So it doesn't really matter if it's D20, if it's BRP. I've never tried the Trail of Cthulhu or any of those other ones, but I will someday. I think Call of Cthulhu is that's for me. So yeah, I'm going to get a lot of good results from Call of Cthulhu. Question 14. What method has gotten you the best results? And tell us about it. What method? It's a bit of a vague question, but one thing that's gotten me really good results in my current homebrew campaign was prepping. And I don't mean prepping my sessions as a GM. I mean prepping the players for the game. We spent 3 or 4 weeks on Facebook just talking to each other and sharing ideas about what we were going to do, what kind of characters we wanted to make. And so we ended up with, when we finally ran the first session, we had this group of characters that just like really had a lot of diversity amongst them, and they really gelled, and it was really cool. Putting that kind of prep work into a campaign. This is a campaign, mind you. For one shot, okay, forget about it. But yeah, like spend some time. You know, some people hate the idea of a session 0. I don't understand why. Although we didn't do a session 0, we just did chat and exchanging ideas on Facebook, but it was a great result for us. So I think that's a method that's really worthwhile. Engage your players before you even sit down at the table together. Get them talking. Get their ideas for the game world. This is something that you take from Fate. Let everybody contribute to, okay, what kind of game do we really want to play? That's the kind of conversation we were having. What do we want to do? And yeah, it was great. So yeah, that's a method that's gotten me really, really good results. Question 15. What got you running these kind of games? What got you into running these kind of games? These kind of games being tabletop RPGs, I'm guessing. It all started when I was a little boy, as early as I can remember, watching my parents' game sessions. They'd have their friends over, they'd have some drinks and some food, and they'd be playing the game and rolling the dice. They had little pewter miniatures back then too. It was a long time ago, but they were having so much fun that I wanted to be part of that. I was just a toddler. And so when I was like 4 years old, I got my dad to run a one-shot just for me, a solo shot, you know. But what got me actually running the games, though, after a few years, I wanted to get my brother into the game because it was the two of us, and I loved it. I wanted him to love it too. So I started running games for him when I was 8 years old. And I've been GMing mostly ever since. I do play a bit more nowadays with like the one-shot group and the W3. But I still think of myself more as a game master than a player. I think I'm better at game mastering than playing. And so it's a combination of the fact that, yes, when I was 8 years old, I ran the game because it was just the two of us and he was 4. So I had to run the game so he could play it. We used to use little rubber muscle men that used to get out of the quarter machines and stuff. We used those for our miniatures and stuff. In fact, we had made our own muscle man wrestling RPG using the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons rules. But yeah, just so we could, you know, we had the little wrestling ring and all that. Yeah, whatever. Anyway, I won't go into too much about that, but that's what got me into running the games. You know, partly necessity because there was 2 of us and I was the oldest. But I had already fallen in love with the concept of role playing, and I continue to do it because I just love creating worlds, situations, characters. I think I love creating characters and situations so much that that's probably why I have a hard time. I've never been a successful player in a campaign before because I lose interest in just playing the same character over and over again. I want to diversify it. You know what I mean? I want to do lots of things. So yeah, my attention span just suits better for GMing. So that's my 15 questions. Oh yeah, I should have thought about who am I going to tag. I'm supposed to tag some people now. So let's see. Who do I want to know more about as a GM and a DM? Andrew Knapp, SR2 Joker. I'd definitely like to hear a bit more about your responses to this anyway as a dungeon master. Charles Cole and Dan Harsh from the Unnamed Adventurers Guild. You guys, if you wouldn't mind, I'd love to hear your stories because you guys are owning the Unnamed Adventurers Guild. It's brilliant. So yeah, I'd like to tag the 2 of them. Who else? Let's see. Alex, Captain Gothnog. We've gamed together a couple of times, but yeah, I'd be interested in hearing a bit more about your GMing and DMing kind of background and perspective. And let's see. There was somebody else, and I can't think of who it would be now. We'll just go with those four for now. That works for me. Four is, no. Let's go to Michael Barker. Michael, sorry, I actually haven't watched any of the Sir Celine games yet because I haven't even caught up with the Provokers or the Gith game and all these other games I'm watching. So Michael Barker, be a better game master. Yeah, let's hear your response to these questions if you have time. Thank you, everybody, for watching this video. Thank you, Sam, for tagging me in the video. So check out Chalice and Chains. I will link his original video in the description. So go over and give him a like and subscribe. Check him out. He's pretty new to our community, I think, but he's definitely a great contributor. So thank you, everyone, and I'll see you at the gaming table.